Hey, this is Blake from the Gig Harbor Fly Shop, and welcome to this episode of the Gig Harbor Fly Show. We've done some videos in the past where we've talked about spey casting stuff, and in one of the videos I talked about how to cast around obstacles, and some people had some questions about it and wanted me to actually demonstrate the casting. And so I thought I'd kind of do a reshoot on part of that video just to really help you dial in some of your casting. So if you're newer to spey casting, you'll probably start off with learning a couple of the basic casts, being the double spey and the snap tee. So if I'm going to do the double spey, and I'm going to bring my hands across and I'm going to swing around here, if I have obstacles just right on my right hand side that's going to hang up on my D loop, I'm not going to be able to make an easy cast there. I'm going to be getting all tangled up. So I can do a cack-handed cast. So if I cast on the upstream side is always going to give me more water over for my D loop to be over, and will usually be more obstacle free. So if I do my double spey here and I come across here, I could be into the bushes or wherever the obstacle is that you might have behind you on that side. If I do the snap tee cack-handed and I bring the fly to the other side off this shoulder here, I have no obstacles over this part of the water here for me to be able to cast. So if I'm on the other side of the river, I usually don't have to change up what I'm going to do, because as a right-handed caster, I'm going to use a snap tee and cast off my right shoulder. And that's going to put that D loop over the water instead of over the bank. But sometimes you have to change it up if you have tree branches above you or some different kind of obstacle. So in that case, I'll cast this left-handed here. So if I'm going to just do like a regular snap tee, and right here is going to be my normal delivery. Say the other side of the river right, but I'm just to demonstrate, I'm casting left-handed to show that here I have, the D loop over the water. If I have an obstacle back behind me here, it is possible to do a cack-handed double spey here and be able to make the cast. I have a couple obstacles right here. There's a bunch of branches, so it's I can't really do the cast here. A lot of spey anglers starting out, one of the big questions that I get asked on the water is or they don't ask because they don't know, is what angle do you cast? And that's huge, because that's going to determine how your fly fishes. So if you have fairly moderate current, but it's not very deep, if you make your cast, so in here, it's moving along pretty good. So if I make my cast more straight across, and then I make a big mend, what ends up happening is that my sink tip sinks down a lot into the rocks, hangs me up before it actually comes onto tension and starts to swing. And so when it is moving, that cack-handed cast makes a more downstream approach. It's a little bit more natural to do it that way. If you cast more quartered downstream, it's going to have less of a time to sink, and then as it swings across, because of your angle, you're not going to hang up as much. So the double spey, it likes to go straight across. If you have your shoulders just facing straight out, it wants to go straight out into the river. So one thing you can do is to pivot your body into the cast. So I like to face downstream more. So when I come here to make my cast, my D loop is being made 180 degrees from the direction that I'm facing to make my cast. Now, if the water's deep and I want to get down, then I might actually want to make my cast more straight across, and then I might make a big mend, and then let that line sink and let that sink tip dig a little bit before it cuts across. You can even take a step down or two just to kind of give a little bit more slack into the swing and allow that fly to sink. Okay, this tip isn't as much of a casting tip as it is a fly presentation tip. When you get your fly out on the water and you start to make your swing, you make your bend, that fly starts to swing, your rod tip, you want that thing to be very steady as it tracks across and allows that fly to swing across. If you're like moving the rod tip up and down as that fly is sinking and it's swinging across, it makes that fly jump up, and it's the fish are, it's just going to be out of the zone of the fish. So make sure that as you track that rod tip across, it brings that fly slowly across, and do it really steady. The reason why we bring the rod tip across is if we think of it as a pendulum, and if you just left the rod tip in one place, then the fly is going to want to swing down underneath where the rod tip is. And so the fly, the further out from the rod tip, it's going to swing faster. So if you have your rod tip, if you hold your rod tip out closer to where your fly is, the fly is closer to the rod tip, it's going to track towards the rod tip slower than if the rod tip is further in. And so you can just kind of keep your rod tip just in front of the fly and just keep it moving slowly across, and you can bring that fly all the way across. If you just hold the rod tip straight out, the fly is going to swing out, swing in, and it's just going to stop right below the rod tip. If you make your cast and you bring your rod tip straight downstream, that fly is going to whip right across and end up right here. So starting out here and moving slowly across helps, especially for wintertime fish, really helps move that fly at the pace that they like. Hey, thanks for joining us on this episode of the Gig Harbor Fly Show. I hope this stuff was helpful. Let us know in the comments if you have any other questions, or if there's other videos that you'd like to see demonstrated. Make sure you subscribe to our channel to keep updated with all the other videos we have coming out, and we'll see you out on the water.